Good afternoon, everybody. Good afternoon, John.
Hello, Marty.
Good to see you.
Good to see you too.
Marty Keller here, John Donovan in Oceanside, California. This is our Intentional Living podcast. Before we get started, I'm asking everyone who's watching this podcast to hit the subscribe button on YouTube and help us build audience for this important work. Let people know that there is a way to cut through all of the things that get in our way of our having the kind of life we really, in our deepest hearts, would like to have. And the accountability practice is one very practical, highly powerful way to make that happen in our lives. So if you hit the subscribe button, that helps us build the audience. So thank you very much for that. So John, what's on your mind today? I know your answer always is accountability. So
I'm gonna add something to accountability 101. It's like back to the basics. The basics that you and I present in the classes around the concept of owning where you find yourself without blame or judgment is such a profound and state-altering process, and it's I don't want to say difficult for people to hear. It is I want to say almost impossible for people to hear the simplicity of the process of simply owning where you find yourself without blame or judgment. And then in the stating of the truth, like, you know, the 5 main words are arrogant, entitled, mean, controlling, needy. And just stating, if I find myself in a needy place and I go, oh, I'm needy, and I'm not in a story around why I'm needy or I'm needy because, no, I'm needy. And then this emotional, it taps into the emotional body and feeling body, which is our connection to the subjective experience that we've had as children that molded our perceptions that created the needy. And then there's an alignment that happens, a frequency validation, a truth validation, and then the statement, I intend to be self-sufficient. I intend to stand in the courage of my convictions, is a command to the same mechanism that created the neediness to now acknowledge the neediness, seek and find the fastest, quickest, easiest route to courage of conviction. And what I do after the statement of intent is simply observe how I find myself different from the needy place to an observation of myself in a different state, or moving towards or an awareness that offers me the opportunity to again notice this is needy and choose something else, even if the choice is to simply be quiet. And the end results change. I remember the first intimate thing I said to a partner, and that intimate thing was, I don't know how to be intimate in a relationship. And when I said it, I want to offer, I'm probably not the first thing I ever said that was intimate, but the first one that I realized was an intimate statement. And it's like, oh my God, I have the capacity to be intimate. I have the capacity to tell the truth of my state to another person in the moment as it is, not according to the standard I used to hold for myself. I'm the fix it man, get it right, be tough, don't cry. And it's like, oh my God. So
It reminds me of something my first meditation teacher said. He said that the way to become present is to just notice when you're not.
yes, yeah, it's like, yeah, it's like,
Oh,
I want to
I'm
be
present to my
Oh,
not being present.
I'm not here. Oh, I'm suddenly here.
Exactly.
Not see, people tell me that a lot in the treatment field. I ask them what they want, and they say I want to be present, and I offer them to consider that no, they don't, because right where they're at is sitting in a treatment center in a chair, and away from their life, trying to figure out how to get back in there without messing it up. That's pretty stark. And if you want to be present, the present moment is everything I did, the most intelligence I could come up with, got me to sit in this chair. Okay, all right, now you're present. Now what do you want? Which is, see, that question then becomes powerful or viable, or even you can now consider even asking it, what do I want now that I know where I'm at?
But you said, you basically said at the top of the conversation that we're going to take a look at basics. And what is you've been sharing, here's a basic question I'd like to ask you.
Okay.
Which is, what is the strategy of starting out your class by asking, what is it that you want that you don't have now? Or what is it you want that you used to have and don't have anymore?
Okay. It puts people in an attentive space. If they come in wanting me or the material or the curricula to fix them, they're going to be looking for that in the curricula and miss the whole point. If they know what they want and they articulate it, and we're real clear about what that may be. It could be peace of mind. Let's consider, I want peace of mind. I don't have peace of mind. So I know right now in this moment that I have not embodied the capacity to be at peace in my own mind. Okay. So now what I have to say may give you information about the how to, why, for, how come. And this reticular activating system that I talk about, this net-like group of cells that permeate the brainstem and midbrain, that filter out non-essential information based on what my belief is. So if I come in there and I have a subconscious belief that I'm not enough, and then they hear the facilitator talk about how to become enough, that has no place in their consciousness to accept, even though they don't know that the subconscious message is I'm not enough. When I say, be proactive, it's just like, boom, boom. If they go, it is my intent to have peace of mind, one of the qualities of that is move from reactive to proactive. They may lean forward with an interest, like, because now they have a pay value. They have something they're looking for. And just getting to the point where some people can simply articulate what they want instead of saying what they think they should be or want, or and sometimes young people come into my room and they're thinking about what their mother thinks they should want, or their father thinks they should want, or society thinks what they should want, and they parrot that. I want to be a productive member of society. Oh, okay. No, well, maybe the end result of you living an authentic life is that you're productive. Okay, that's a side effect. That's a benefit from the activity you're in, not the goal. I want to feel good about myself because I produce in society. I can say to a lot of people, I feel good about the production I have in society, about the effectiveness I have in society, but that has nothing to do with my value. It emanates from my sense of value instead of I'll do that, then feel of value. So what you want, identifying what you want that you do not have, opens you up to new information. The way the rational mind works, it needs a point of reference. It needs a something diametrically opposed so it can see the difference in shades of color, in distance, in nuance. If the information from their childhood is you're not enough, then when I say you hold value as a human being, that is just thank you for sharing, and there's no place for them to like hold on to that. They don't have that point of reference because it's not in their consciousness and or subconscious. So very tricky. It's let me give an example. I will ask of this reticular activating system and the misinformation that's stored in the subconscious. Usually when I ask a man, and I've been doing men's work for a lot of years, do you love yourself? Their answer quick is yes, yes I do. And then they start telling me how well they do shit, how much they produce. And then I qualify and I say, okay, based on where you find yourself, and usually I'm talking to this person in jail, based on where you find yourself, which is in jail, would you be willing to consider that the answer to the question, do I love myself, is a no? Now, if you're hearing that question, am I confident, and you got that equated with love or mixed up with love, then yeah, the answer is unequivocally yes, I'm confident. I know what I can do, I know what I'm capable of, boom, boom, boom. But if you consider the fact that the answer to the question, do I love myself, and you find yourself sitting in jail, there's a discordance there. There's something amiss. And that's the reticular activating system. And the confusion caused by the family of origin dysfunction, childhood trauma, that we wade through to finally get to a point where I realize, and I'm talking about me now, that I'm not capable of intimacy. I'm not capable of long-term loving, caring relationships. Based on the end result, I've not been able to maintain one. Okay. And if you asked me what I thought of myself, I'd have told you I'm a nice guy. I'm a pretty good guy. I'll give you the shirt off my back. And except if we're in a loving relationship, then I'm keeping score and I'm out of here if you mess with me. So I don't know if that answered your question or caused more questions.
Well, why not? So one of the other things that I think that that opening question indicates is that it's a question everyone can answer. And so part of what I like about accountability, and you said this at the beginning, is it's a process that gets us wherever we are when
Yes.
we encounter it.
Yes.
So it doesn't matter. I can be a 13-year-old kid. I can be a 70-year-old man. I can be the Pope. I
Yep.
can be somebody homeless, and there's still something I want that I don't have.
Correct.
And so for me, the power of the question is also that it's universal and that it has no agenda.
Right.
It's like, and and all human beings, I was just saying, I don't know if it's true of all human beings. Most human beings are flattered to be asked a question like that. It's like, oh, John's really interested in me. He wants to know I'd like to have that I don't have.
That's a pertinent point. That's absolutely, yes. The traditional treatment and or school classroom is you're coming in here because you want what I have. You want the information I have. And if you get the information well, you'll get an A and be able to make more money or do whatever you're going to be doing. So the traditional understanding is go in and listen to the smart guy, become smart, and then you'll be okay. Instead of, oh, what are you looking for? What is it you're interested in? What do you love to do? What activity do you find yourself in where you lose time? And if you know the answer to that, have you been doing it or have you given that up for something else? Yeah, it's a mind bender.
I think you may know that for most of my career, I was involved in government and politics. And what I discovered early on is two things. Number one, I didn't like going to big mixers, and politics is nothing but an endless series of big mixers.
Wow.
Fundraising events, legislative hearings, it doesn't matter. It's highly social.
Yeah.
And I would find myself frightened to walk in this room because it's mostly strangers. And what I discovered early on is all I needed to say was, well, tell me about yourself.
Mm-hmm.
And I never needed to say anything else after that.
Mm-hmm.
Because everyone is, again, maybe not everyone, but most of us are flattered by the invitation. And most of us have something to say.
Yeah.
And so that, again, the power of accountability is that it intersects us where we are. It doesn't have any opinion about where we are.
Right.
That I can ask myself questions, or I can listen to a teacher or a facilitator suggest questions that I could ask myself. And I can say, yes, I'd like to pursue that, or no, I don't want to pursue that. And like the accountability practice is like, okay, whatever.
Yeah. Your choice.
I mean, when you were talking about the sensation of neediness, for example, and you talked about, I can get to the point of what do I want? What I was going to say at the time, and because I thought you would say it, is that I can also choose to stay needy.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
The choice is entirely mine. And part of the philosophy, if we were to dig behind the accountability tree and the stuff you have up there on your board behind you, is that all of us have the answers within us. Yeah. And no one else has the answer for me except me. Exactly. Or no one has the answers for you except you.
Right.
And we don't live in a culture, and I don't think any culture in humanity is like this, where we're invited to continually inquire as to what's going on inside and share it.
Mm-hmm.
And so if I don't even know that there are things that I want, for example, or if, as you were saying, I censor myself before I ever get to the question, then yeah, it will never occur to me that that I can actually consider wanting something that I never thought about. Mm-hmm. Except maybe in the deep, dark recesses of my soul where nobody could see and nobody could hear. And because it's kept there, it's kind of like in a dark cave where it doesn't ever have the possibility of manifestation because I'm keeping it hidden. Yeah. I remember one time being it was one of those weekend seminar type situations, and there was a whole group of people, and the facilitator of this thing was actually someone who was asking people what did they want, and this was a context of relationships between men and women, and I remember this wife got up and she said some kind of thing about her husband or her relationship with her husband, and the facilitator invited the husband to stand up, and he was he was facilitating a dialogue, and he said to the husband, "So what do you want?" And I could see in this guy's face, he wanted to say, "I don't want to be with this woman." And then you could see him say, "I can't say that." And he was just utterly paralyzed. He could say nothing. He said nothing.
Right.
And that's the human dilemma. I thought to myself, that's the human dilemma right there. Right on the face of this poor guy who is in touch with what he wants, and then he can't say it.
Right.
Because there's something wrong with wanting what he wanted.
Yeah. Or that it would hurt her feelings, or he would
Right.
do something, or instead of what I now have come to understand, that if that is in me and I'm able to say it, I do not want to be with you, it starts a dialogue about how that came to be, which is healing in itself. And the dialogue, it could be that, oh, okay, no, this is the end result. I don't want to be with you. If I don't say it, that will be the end result. If I say it, the possibility of something shifting is there. And this is a good example with my first wife. I was not able to say to her, and my statement was, "This is not working for me." I was not able to say that. So what I did was, when the word torment came up, and it's in alignment with what I did, I made her life miserable so that she would say, "I don't want to be with you," so that I could then blame her because I didn't have the wherewithal to simply say, this is not working. I need or want or and express it, and then get into a dialogue, because that may well have created the space for us to work through this, instead of me making sure it did happen. Okay. Yeah.
Yeah.
So,
Well, one of the things that I've come to understand is that we're always wanting something. That wanting and desiring are universal human psychodynamic. And one of our principles is that we're always getting what we want.
yes.
And so maybe this would be a good opportunity then to take a look at one of our basic principles. You've got it up there on the board about the distinction between the conscious and the subconscious mind, and why it's so valuable to begin to explore that subconscious mind.
Right. I don't have my camera set up. It would have been nice to have it set up. Our total experiences are held in our memory, and whether that's in, there's argument about where that is. Is it inside you? Okay, so how I hold my memory.
Why don't you hold on a second, and I'll go get that. I'll put it up on the share screen.
Oh, okay.
Okay, so even though John doesn't have his camera set up, we do have this handy dandy screen share. So I'm going to bring this up so John can illustrate his point with a little visual aid. Go ahead.
Cool. So the conscious mind holds 1/8 of our total experience, which means we can know some of the detail or have a memory or be able to talk about, like an autobiographical way, about an experience. 7/8 of our memory is stored in our, it says unconscious mind. I got to change that to subconscious mind. Even though it's in the subconscious aspect of our memory, it is still active in our decision-making process. So in my subconscious, I hold the trauma, unresolved trauma from my childhood. And for me now, I can say resolved trauma in my subconscious. So wherever I find myself, whatever the result is in my life, it's like we talked about being present. Well, me being present, okay, at one point in my recovery, I was sitting in a room full of other alcoholics stating the truth that I was an alcoholic too. My name's John, I'm an alcoholic. Okay, so that end result is in alignment with my experience. So my total experience, conscious and subconscious, thought it was a good idea for me to use alcohol to find some kind of relief or pleasure or happiness. And it did work at first. It worked for a long time. I felt good. And then when I stopped drinking and then had some sober time, the tension would build back up from my subconscious mind about I'm not enough, whatever the trauma issue was in my childhood. And for me, it was incest, torment, humiliation, ridicule, would be in there. I want to say gnawing at me. And as soon as I took a drink of beer or alcohol, it kind of subsided and I felt, my word is copacetic, or I felt at ease. We talk about alcohol being, it reduces inhibitions, and it absolutely. So after a while, I found that alcohol didn't work and I was still miserable and drunk. And what I've realized over my recovery period is that if I don't address that subconscious trauma in some way, shape, or form, somehow, and there's a lot of ways to do it, I found the accountability process works well for me and for a lot of people. There's EMDR therapy, there's somatic experiencing, there's brain spotting, there's different modalities that help a person address the unresolved trauma. The end result automatically changes. I'm not sure. And I find myself in a different place. Okay, so I know that if I just simply own my present moment, say I'm irritated, agitated, I'm find myself acting arrogant or entitled or mean, and simply say I'm being arrogant, I'm mean. That statement of truth resonates with the information that's coming from me to create the arrogance and the meanness. Now, if I'm afraid of
that's
people,
in your subconscious.
that's in my subconscious. If in there I got hurt around people, and as an adult, my conscious mind says, you know, I should socialize, but I really don't like people. But I can't say that out loud because then people would think I'm weird because I don't like people. So I act out, or I don't be sociable and find myself isolated and alone. If I simply state the truth, I'm arrogant or entitled or mean. It's in alignment with the information that says that's a good idea because that's where you're safe. I stayed safe as a child by shutting down my emotional body, by compromising myself, by not having what I've come to understand now is simply the feeling of being alive and adventurous and enthusiastic. And now I can heal that trauma by simply saying the truth. That's a validation. And when I say I intend to be kind, or I intend to be assertive instead of aggressive, I intend to be gracious, that directive to the subconscious mind says, seek and find that. And it opens me up to new information. I think I'm rambling right now. Help me get back on track.
Well, yeah, I think that the power of accountability for me is, as you were saying, it allows me, and you know, sometimes I need help doing this. This is why, you know, we facilitate meetings, because sometimes, like the stuff down there in that 7/8 that's considered the shadow material.
Yes. Yeah.
Sometimes stuff is so repressed into the subconscious that the only way we can see it is by seeing it outside of ourselves.
Yes.
And that's what, you know, we've talked about this many times. That's called projection.
Yeah.
And so we sometimes need help from a disinterested party, a facilitator, or other people in a group to help us see that which we're projecting and seeing outside of ourselves is actually buried in our subconscious. So accountability for me, one of its great powers is that the capacity to help me see that which I cannot with my conscious mind
Yes,
see on my own.
correct.
My other guru, Ken Wilber, says that you can sit and meditate till the cows come home, but you won't see anything from your subconscious mind.
Right.
And so there has to be a method by which this material can become retrieved deliberately. I mean,
Yeah.
the instances that you were talking about are ways that the subconscious material shows up, but for us in our conscious mind, it just seems like a compulsion or some out of control thing over that just mystifies us.
Yes.
And when it's done, it's gone, we forget about it.
Yeah.
So, you know, in the example that you were talking about with your first wife, you had no way of seeing what you were able to see later on by going through this process.
Correct.
And so when you got her to instigate the separation, all the stuff that you went through was still hidden from you of what was really going on.
Yes. Yeah. Yeah. I actually believed it was her fault.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
So the power of knowing not only that we have a subconscious mind, but that the majority of our psychic activity lives there, along with all of the information, you know, even the autonomous, or it's not what is it, all of the nervous commands that keep our body going, all of that stuff's happening in our subconscious. I'm not aware of my heartbeat unless I make myself be aware of it.
Right.
But my subconscious, this is all being regulated. And so what's down there in that 7/8 is an incredible treasure trove of activity, not just
Yes.
psychic, but also physiological.
Mm-hmm.
So the ability to be aware of that, so that when things go sideways in my conscious experience, I now can go, oh, there must be something buried in my subconscious that wants to have attention drawn to it.
Yes.
And now through the accountability practice, I have ways of getting to that without blaming myself or judging myself, because the capacity to blame and judge myself is there also in my subconscious.
Yes.
Ready to spring into action at a moment's notice.
Yeah. One of the things I normalized and didn't even pay the slightest attention to was my capacity for self-criticism. I just thought that was normal. I didn't know that there was something dysfunctional about
Right.
it. It was like my way of we call it our conscious, our conscious is bothering us. Well, yeah. And it is hooked into trauma and it is misinformed. And when my parents stopped tormenting me, I picked it up and said the same words and got the same reaction, only they were gone and I was still doing the self-recrimination, the self-criticism, I'm not enough, below my conscience. But if you ask me in real time, how do you feel? I'm a good worker. I do this really well. I know what I'm doing. If you want something done, please ask me, I'll get it done. And thinking that blanketed my whole life. It's like, so when I was struggling with something, a relationship or jealousy, it's like, okay, all right, I'm going to fix this. I'm going to do this. Or I have reason because she is obvious. It's a fact now. And I go on that fact and it's manufactured from inside of me in this subconscious, dysfunctional misinformation. And I have no way to sort it out other than to blame you or blame myself, judge you or judge myself. And that was the story of my life. It was either them or me. And for the most part, I want to be honest, it was them. It was, I mean, it's obvious to the casual observer that our government doesn't give a shit about us. I mean, that's a fact. So I can go on that and just be whatever I want to be because they don't care. Instead of, what do I want? Oh, in this mess, in this where I find myself, in this society, what do I want? And then I even got to the question, what do I want to bring to my community? What do I want to offer? That never entered my mind. You know, I go to work, I show up, I don't complain. What else am I supposed to do? Well, actually, what I've discovered is I have a gift that I can bring to my community as it is without any condition. I can simply bring it, set it down. If you want it, if good. If you don't want it, that's super fine too. And I'm feeling fulfilled in my decision to offer what I have to my community. And we narrow that down to my children and my grandchildren and the people in my life. I have something to offer. Instead of I need from you, I need you to do this so I feel. If you would just, then I would be. And nobody has to do anything in my life today except be who they are. I choose and say what I want and either move closer or I move away. My choice.
You know, it's interesting that this treasure trove in our subconscious doesn't merely contain those things that you've been talking about, which we could say family of origin trauma experiences, which essentially is unhealed energy, but it also contains all of the beauty that we can't own for ourselves. I was thinking about when you asked me the question, what do I want?
Yeah.
The answer to that's also in my subconscious.
Yes.
And that the question activates the accessing.
Yes.
And what I found in doing accountability is the process that we go through is that we discover a truth about ourselves. I'm needy.
Right.
And so how do I feel about that? Well, I feel ashamed. I'm judging myself as inadequate. I'm embarrassed. Okay, what do I want? What I've learned in this process is to not anticipate answering that question.
Yes.
And to allow as much as possible that answer to spontaneously spring forth from my subconscious in the moment of the asking of the question.
Yep.
And what I've discovered is there's really only 2 or 3 things I ever want. Peace, love, joy,
yep,
freedom. I found that after doing this for several years, like, oh, that's interesting that whenever I asked myself that question and I let my subconscious spontaneously yield the answer, it's almost always one of these 3 or 4 things. I said, oh, maybe there's some information there for me, for my conscious mind.
See, I think that's what Jesus Christ called to a peace beyond all understanding.
Yeah.
Is what he was referring to, that it's in me, innate in me, and nobody has to do anything for me to be at peace. They can still do what they do. I either move closer to it or I move away from it, depending on my need for safety and or comfort. And I can be at peace, no matter what they're doing, I'm still at peace because it's not coming from outside of me by their behavior they need to. It's coming from inside of me by me knowing what I want and then actively and proactively reaffirming that. So.
Exactly.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, because that understanding that Jesus was referring to there was, in my interpretation, intellectual understanding.
Correct. Yeah.
Or in this context, it could be just conscious mind understanding.
Yeah. Yeah.
And
mind understanding.
There's so much available to us in that subconscious. And you know, that's why when I hear you say, for example, that when you're facilitating an accountability practice meeting, your intention is to learn more about yourself.
Yes.
And when in the first years when I would hear you say that, besides my part of my mind goes, oh, that's bullshit. I did not know that in the subconscious mind, there's an endless amount of stuff to learn.
Oh my God.
And it may be because the subconscious mind is somehow not just our own subconscious, but it's the subconscious mind of all humanity.
Yes.
Somehow I'm tapped into the mind of all of us, and it's like, because you cannot see even when information comes up from the subconscious, we cannot see the end of it.
Right.
Now, we put that picture up and we got an iceberg, and it looks like you could theoretically swim around that iceberg and see where it begins and ends. But the actual, my actual experience is I've never come to the end of the subconscious.
No, no, its depth and breadth is infinite.
Yeah. And so that's, so then when I hear you say, it's my intention to learn about myself, learn more about myself, it's like, okay, I get that. Yeah,
Yeah.
there's still more to go.
There's still more to go. That's the good news. The good news is
Right.
I got it. The good news I haven't figured it out yet. And in the seeking is the feeling of contentment, of life, of expansion, of what I've been looking for.
So continue our conversation about basics. What you just said made me think about the role of feeling safe in our work.
Mm-hmm.
And I wonder if that's something you'd be willing to comment on, because it seems to me in my own experience that, and this is something that Maslow actually, I think, has built into the hierarchy of needs model, that there has to be a basic sense of security before I'm willing to go outside of my comfort zone. And that most children who come from a alcoholic or dysfunctional families, security is actually not something that we got. I certainly didn't get it.
Mm-hmm.
And so in my subconscious, there is a hypervigilant tendency to seek out and avoid those things that make me feel unsafe or insecure.
Right. Which, coming from the developing of the perception of safety from the dysfunctional family childhood trauma, is an unrealistic place that does not exist. When I used to say, and I don't remember actually me saying this specifically, I want to be safe. I do remember I want to feel secure, or I want to feel content. That was when everything outside of me was copacetic. So my idea of safety was everybody doing what they're supposed to and not messing with me, or betraying me, or testing me, or all that stuff. So that concept of safety actually doesn't exist. What I've discovered this safe is, I am the first one to take care of myself. That's nobody's job, is to take care of me. They get to say, feel, do what they want. I have the capacity to move away for the need of safety. If my need for safety means, okay, I'm going to go over here for a minute, I'm not going to participate in this. That safety exists, and it's spontaneous, in the moment, dynamic, organic, and it flows. To expect my environment to be safe all the time, well, no, okay, all right, thank you for sharing, but no, you can't have it. You can have a sense of healthy boundaries where you go, whoa, I need to take care of myself. I'm going to go, I'm going to leave, I'm going to, whatever the boundary may be. Or listening to that voice in my head said, yeah, I really don't want to go there right now. And then listening to that, not like, oh, what's wrong with John? How come he's not doing, or he said he would, or all these things that we use on each other to get each other into this combative, unsafe place. So I don't know. So my idea that safety, the way I conceived of it before my recovery, does not exist. The safety that I can create for myself, in myself, is palpable. I am safe. One of my intents is to act non-violently in any potentially violent or violent situation. So I can be in a violent situation and move to safety. And or do something different than matching the violence coming to me. An example of that would be like driving, you know, the fear of somebody running into you or hurting you, which is a legitimate fear. That's dangerous. You can get hurt. I was driving down a road, I was in the fast lane, somebody pulled from a side street into their lane. It was a 2-lane, one each way. And I thought they were going to pull into their lane, and they happened not to see me, and they pulled right in front of me. And I swerved I just moved my wheel just a little bit, missed them. They probably moved their wheel the other way. We didn't collide. And my first act was to look in the rearview mirror with concern for those people. Now, before I would have said they were trying to hurt me, they don't pay attention, they're dangerous. Well, okay, maybe all that's true. Has nothing to do with me being proactive in that situation, which my subconscious body took care of that by moving the wheel faster than I could think and avoiding the collision. And they're doing the same thing probably on the other side, because I was sure I was going to hit them. There was no way I was going to hit them. And that's the subconscious reactive, which we need. But now my consciousness or my concern is for their safety, not to degrade them or like stop and pull them out of their car and tell them they're stupid or all the things I would have normally wanted to do. It's like this accountability, this the basic saying the truth, where I find myself arrogant, entitled, mean, controlling, needy. Taking a breath. Yeah, that's in alignment with what had me as a kid. What do I want? I want to be assertive, set healthy boundaries, be kind, gracious, and gentle and loving. And then to find myself in a situation where I am. That was like, I mean, I had the reason to like berate them and like call them stupid and everything, but that wasn't my first reaction. My first reaction was, are they okay? So.
Well, that raises a question or an observation. When we go through the accountability tree, as we call it, that's just a series of steps. There's basically 3 steps. What's the truth? How do I feel about the truth? Stating the truth.
Yeah.
And stating the truth baldly, without blame or judgment.
Right.
How do I feel? And then as I notice how I feel, what do I want?
Yes.
And then creating that as an intention. I intend to experience safety.
Yes.
I intend to experience peace. I intend to experience confidence, whatever. And then underneath that, there's a couple of, in your version, there's a couple of validating observations. And at the bottom is the word repeat.
Yeah.
So why do I have to repeat? What's the repeat about here?
Okay. You don't have to.
Why ought I to consider?
And
you're right, I don't have to.
I do every time a character defect or an aspect of myself that comes out that I don't want, I repeat. I will do, and I run to this process now. Oh, that was mean. I just said something mean to my grandson. That was mean. It is my intent to be kind, because I know that every time I do that, I take a piece of that subconscious and shift it and move it to where I say I want it to be, instead of where it was influenced by my parental, teacher, society's conditioning to be a good man, that I created the perception that I found myself wanting to die, actually. Wanting myself to, well, walking into AA or walking into an ACA group looking for help because I'm at a loss here. I don't know. It's not working for me anymore. And everything that I held of seeing myself made me valuable just fell apart, just went away. There was nothing left. I was just like, oh my God. And then I heard somebody mention a 12-step group, alcoholic. I don't know, I'm going to go. And this miracle happened. It's like, because I was looking internally instead of continuing to look outside of myself. So,
Well, I think that, so what I'm hearing you say, the value of repeating
yeah,
is because we haven't said this yet, but not only the brain as an organ of the human body, but the mind, they're both plastic, they're changeable.
yes,
And that this process, the repetition of this process is essentially a direction to our subconscious to change what it pays attention to.
yes,
And so for me, that's the power of repetition, because I'm retraining my subconscious mind. So if I intend to create a world of joy, peace, and freedom and
yes,
community, then I'm training my subconscious mind to be on the lookout for experiences of joy, peace, freedom, and community.
yes,
Whereas before it was on the lookout for love equals I'm all alone. How do I keep Marty safe from these people that want to hurt him by loving him?
right. Yeah, or backstabbing,
Right.
or betraying, or using. You're just using me. Yeah.
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 So for me, that when in that experience that you described in the driving, where someone pulled out in front of you and your reaction was a reaction of concern, that was, tell me if you agree or disagree, but that's because you were training your subconscious mind to have that reaction.
Yes, absolutely. Yes.
And
And
by just doing this over and over, so every time you saw the former quote adverse reaction, you set a new intention. I intend to be kind. I intend to be non-judgmental, whatever it was.
mm-hmm.
So that at some point in time, I begin to notice that my reaction has changed.
Yes. Yeah. Automatically. And if I notice the change and I can connect it to the activity of accountability, I am more likely to go back to that activity because I see the value in it. One of the things about the reticular activating system, net-like group of cells throughout the brainstem and midbrain, is that it filters out non-essential information. And the only thing that gets through that is something with pay value or a threat. So the pay value for me is I'm feeling at peace, and I'm noticing that I'm less likely to give it away to other people, where before I would flash and somebody just raised an eyebrow and I was in a rage. Now people raise an eyebrow and I wonder what they're curious about, or what did they notice, or what did they, oh my God, maybe he has something to tell me. Instead of like, what are you doing? How come you did that to me? What do you think who do you think you are? It's like that's gone. It's like, I remember in high school walking down the hallway and I heard somebody laughing around the corner. I made a beeline, went up to him and said, what are you laughing at? It's like, I took it personal. Now, when I hear somebody laugh, my thought is, I wonder what's funny. It's like a remarkable 180-degree shift through this process of owning my projections, saying where I'm at in wherever that is, character defect wise, owning it, no blame, no judgment. It is my intent to be kind and loving. It is my intent to be loving, caring, nurturing. Man. And the end result is I get copious amounts of feedback that I'm caring, loving, and nurturing.
So for people who've been watching this podcast regularly, I'm going to ask John this question. So you're no longer triggered by crumbs on the toast, huh? Or on the butter?
Oh, burnt toast. Yeah.
Oh, that's right, burnt toast.
Yeah, no, burnt toast is just an indication of a bad toaster, or a reset, or an opportunity to go out to breakfast.
Yeah.
It's like, yeah, it's no longer a threat to my manhood.
I have the similar experience with respect to the traffic thing. Is and you know, it's a very useful metric, because most of us drive, and so most of us are on the road, which means that we are constantly in a stream of traffic where most of the cars are not the one we're driving.
Right.
And so what that means is I'm in a place where I have no control over what all these people around me are going to do.
Correct.
And as a matter of fact, every time I contemplate that truth, I'm amazed that there aren't more traffic accidents. But what I've noticed is, as I've done this work, is that when people do things that in the old days I would trigger an adrenaline rush and a condemnation,
Mhm.
it's more like, oh, okay. It's like I don't get the adrenaline rush. It's miraculous in
It
the
is
sense
miraculous.
that when I lived with adrenaline rushes as my only response, it never occurred to me that there could be a different
Mhm.
response.
You know, as you were talking, what I've noticed that I notice on the road is a lot more courteous, kind
Huh,
drivers.
huh,
It's like they're all over the place. It's amazing. I didn't see that before. They were all a bunch of, hotheads and, but now it's like, oh my God, that guy just let me in. Or I let that person in and I get a wave and a thumbs up and
right.
um
Or not,
or not, and it's okay.
right.
Yeah, I've noticed a lot more courteous, cautious, defensively driving other drivers that allow for distraction in other people and keep themselves safe. That's another way I keep myself safe. Is I am a defensive driver. I I I am a. It's like somebody's speeding. I go. Let me get out of your way. I know you got some place to go. God bless your heart, and let you do whatever you need to do. I don't know. I don't know. It could be their wife is pregnant. Could be where they have a baby. Could be they just got some news. I don't know. It's none of my business. And I'm a defensive driver.
Right. And it could be the guy's an asshole.
It could be.
I mean,
And it had nothing to do with me.
exactly.
Yeah.
So as we come to the end of our time together, I'm really grateful that we spent some time today starting to review the basics of this practice. There's a lot of moving parts to it, even though it's also very simple and elementary. And the reason there's a lot of moving parts to it, we explored when we took on the question of the subconscious, because there's all kinds of stuff below the capacity of my conscious mind to notice what's going on.
Mhm.
And so I've been doing this work with you, John, for 11, 12 years, and I'm still surprised when stuff shows up that my conscious mind goes, oh, I thought we had dealt with this.
Right.
And it's like, what I've learned to do is like, rather than go, well, yeah, I thought I had, but now it's something new. I get to learn.
Mhm.
It's like, well, more will be revealed
Mhm.
is the attitude.
Yeah. Next week we have a visitor, and the week after I think we have a visitor. And just to let everybody know, the next time we have the opportunity, I am going to set the camera up so I can get up on the board and just go through the basics one time, and then
Great.
have that session. I don't know, it's going to be like 65, 70, I don't know, but have that accessible to people who want to know the basics. So I don't know how we're going to do that. I'm not the techie guy, but have that available to people to look at, so that when we talk about accountability, no blame, no judgment, they have a picture of what we're saying, and they have an idea. When we talk about reticular activating system, the brainstem and the midbrain, there's a diagram on the board behind me, right there.
Yep.
Has that on there, and then the iceberg is here, and so anyway, yeah, we'll go through it.
That'd be great. And I want to, before we wrap up, I want to invite anybody who would like to participate in an accountability practice meeting where we go through these things in a very practical way, working on issues that individuals bring to the group. There are meetings all on Zoom, Monday nights and Thursday nights at 6:30, Tuesday afternoon at 4:30, and Saturday mornings at 8:30, all Pacific time. And my and John's email address will be on the board at the end of the podcast. So you can just shoot us a note and we'll be happy to share with you the Zoom address for these various meetings. In John's meeting, I believe you do go over the board. I believe that you you actually have the camera set up so that you can work it. So Saturday mornings at 8:30 for those of you that would like to see John. If you can't wait till we do this on the podcast,
Right.
do it on Saturday morning, 8:30 Pacific time.
Mhm.
And of course, the value of coming to a meeting is that there's an opportunity that you would have to work on something that you might want help from John or the other facilitators who are trained in helping us answer the question, what do I want that I don't have, or what do I want that I used to have and I don't have anymore? And
Right.
start out there and be introduced to the world of your own subconscious.
Wow. Wow. What an invitation. Wow.
Exactly.
Yeah, that's cool.
Yes, come to the endless adventure of yourself.
Right. The never ending story of say your name.
Exactly.
Yeah.
All right, John. Well, thank you very much, as always. Appreciate dialoguing with you and
Yeah.
look forward to doing it next week.
You got it, Marty.
All right. Take
All right.
care.
Yes.